folks, welcome back to the Dub Actor. This is Chris once again. Hello folks, and welcome back to a special presentation of Chris White Reports. This is a report today about the Pennsylvania Senate race right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I hope everybody can hear me just fine. It's Sunday, the 15th of May, and the Republican and Democratic primaries here in the state of Pennsylvania are just 2 days away. Tuesday, the 17th of May, is our primary here in Pennsylvania, and this story is about a disgusting, vile situation that the entrenched political elites, and yes, that includes Donald Trump himself, the entrenched political elites seek to undermine the will of the voter. And it's especially egregious because many of those doing it are Republicans doing it to another Republican. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the Senate campaign of Kathy Barnette, a veteran, a successful financier and businesswoman, a political commentator, and a black woman. A black woman. Where is the left now, folks? Where is the left now when they are smearing Kathy Barnette? Of course, they're not going to defend Kathy Barnette because they're just slime, to say the very least. The very least. Racism, misogyny. What exactly is driving the smears against Kathy Barnette? And what are these smears? Well, folks, it's the entrenched political elites, or the swamp, as Donald Trump once called them. Something he is now part of, the swamp. The very same insurgency sort of campaign that Donald Trump ran in 2016 is what he criticizes Kathy Barnette for in 2022. Shocking and disappointing, to say the least. But hey, folks, far too many people become part of the political elite, and then that's where their loyalty lies. Not to the people, not to the nation, not to the Constitution, but to the political elites and their entrenched power and their ego. So let's talk about this story, ladies and gentlemen. What's happened? About 5 days before the election, the smear campaign began against candidate Kathy Barnette. Now, why 5 days before the election? Who is Kathy Barnette? Well, until 5 days before the election, she was pretty much a nobody to many people around the country, certainly around the country, but even here in the state of Pennsylvania. However, a Trafalgar poll that came out last week put her in second place in the Republican primary race. This with over 1,000 likely Republican primary voters in Pennsylvania. George Buschetto, Sean Gale, Carla Sands, and Jeff Bartos barely registering. It's a three-way race between Mehmet Oz, the Turkish national, non-resident of the state of Pennsylvania, running for office here in Pennsylvania, and a television personality, Kathy Barnette, and Dave McCormick, a successful businessman. a three-person race. Now, how did Kathy Barnette go to 23%, a statistical tie with those other two folks? Well, folks, it has everything to do with the Roe versus Wade, the criminal disclosure of a Supreme Court of the United States pending decision about where that case is going, which will likely strike down the unconstitutional Roe versus Wade decision of the activist, criminally negligent Burger Court in 1973. That unconstitutional decision, which extended government authority from the federal government into a realm it has no authority whatsoever, in direct violation of the 10th Amendment of this document right here, the Constitution of the United States of America. After 50 years of abomination and abuse of our Constitution, it appears that that will be thrown out. That, of course, raised the abortion issue to the fore and brought that on top of the table and made that an issue in this political race. Why is that an issue? Well, Kathy Barnette is the product of rape. Her mother was 11 years old when she was raped by an adult pedophile who impregnated her. She gave birth at the age of 12. Her mother is just 12 years older than Kathy Barnette. It's a compelling story, and you'll be able to hear Kathy in her own words here shortly. But I need to let you know that while this is a report about Kathy Barnette, it's a report about honesty. So I'm also going to share with you some things that are less than complimentary about Kathy Barnette, but it's the truth. And people shouldn't run from the truth. And Kathy Barnette, contrary to the fake stream, lamestream media, is not running from the truth. The media, CNN, reported yesterday that she has declined comments, refused interviews, closes her campaigns. Those are lies. There was a closed event in Western Pennsylvania in Butler County this week, which was announced from the outset back in March that it was a closed event for donor, raising money to pay for the cost of this campaign. So the media lying about that is distasteful. The CNN lying that her campaign will not answer questions, she will not take interviews, is a total lie as well. I went to a rally where she was at in March with Doug Mastriano, and she answered questions. She talked to the media. She didn't refuse anything, answered every question asked of her, and gave a rather compelling speech. This is a story about what the political elites want for you. And make no mistake, I've told people over and over again, this is what George Washington warned us about, the danger of political parties. There is a uniparty of political elites who are enriched and privileged. And no, they're not old white men. There are some old white men, but there are old cranky white women too, like Nancy Pelosi, and cranky, annoying little know-nothing white women like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and racist bigots like Ilhan Omar and others in this party, in this uniparty that live for their privilege. Mitch McConnell's, Chuck Schumer's, Nancy Pelosi's. The list is endless. They're there for their own egotistical reasons, not for the business of the nation. Now, they can argue that that's not true, but we see it time and again. Dingy Harry Reid lied to the American public about Mitt Romney, a bold-faced lie in the 2012 presidential campaign. After the campaign was over and the media finally had the time and the interest in actually looking into his fraudulent, lying claims, they disclosed that it was a lie. Harry Reid admitted that it was a lie and said, well, it worked, didn't it? And that is the nature of the uniparty, especially Democrats, but also Republicans. And that's what's happened to Kathy Barnette here. They will attack her regardless of what she says, regardless of what she does. Let me just let me show this video. This is a compelling video. And then I'm going to show the Doug Mastriano video first. We'll do Doug Mastriano video, and then we'll do the Kathy Barnette video a little bit later. But I'm going to go through some slides here and show you they besmirch her military career, claim, first off, Fox News ran a story the other day in which they talked about her opponents. They didn't mention anything about Mehmet Oz, lots of which is questionable and has been unvetted because he's the anointed one. And then they mentioned her other opponent, McCormick, said he's a veteran. But when they mention her, they failed to mention that she's a veteran as well. She is a 10-year veteran of the Army Reserve and National Guard. So let's hear from Doug Mastriano, the candidate for governor here in the state of Pennsylvania, who had that event back in March in Manheim, Pennsylvania, in which Kathy Barnette was there. This is Doug Mastriano. This lasts about 1 minute, 43 seconds, after which I'll come back, and then we'll start going through her military records to show you the lies and smears. Doug Mastriano.
We first met Kathy Barnette about 4 years ago, and then Refuting and I invited her to Harrisburg to be the keynote speaker at the introduction of my heartbeat bill legislation. That legislation is designed to save baby lives. If you hear a heartbeat, no abortion.
I had nothing to do with the conditions that brought me into existence.
And Kathy's story was intriguing because we had no idea when we invited her to speak that her tale actually is very related to pro-life movement.
And yet there I was, being wonderfully and fearfully woven together in my mother's womb.
We just knew her as a Fox News commentator, an award-winning author, and somebody who really stands for conservative values. And then she shared her heart of how she was conceived in rape when her mom was 11 years old.
I was a human. I was a person. I was not some inanimate object.
And then the family got together and said, why should we punish this little one for some bad things that happened? And so they raised a strong person who's going to be the next senator of Pennsylvania.
We are literally standing on pure gold in Pennsylvania. And the fact that this administration has created a hostile environment for us to be able to drill and to invest. Instead, now we're on our hands and knees.
She doesn't play around like these slippery politicians.
Energy allows us to remain sovereign, and it allows us to put a check on bullies.
Remy and I have watched Kathy over the past several years stand for and champion conservative values, so that's why I'm endorsing Kathy Barnette for Senate. She's a fighter, she's tough, she's a veteran, she loves this country here, and she won't be bought off or sold like so many of the folks in D.C. are.
I am Doug Mastriano, and I endorse this message.
There you go, folks. My former colleague from the U.S. Army War College, Doug Mastriano, candidate for governor in Pennsylvania, someone they're also trying to stop, the swamp. Now, not Trump. Trump came out yesterday and endorsed Doug Mastriano for governor because Donald Trump is not a fool. Sometimes he can smell a winning ticket when it's there. And right now, Mastriano is a double-digit lead despite the collusion of Republican candidates in abandoning the race just days before the race after they polluted our ballots by putting their names on there and running a campaign and distracting voters. If they had no snowball's chance in hell of winning the campaign, why did they ever stick with it as long as they did, waiting until after the names are on the ballot to confuse voters? This is a last-minute, desperate attempt by the Republican Party in the state of Pennsylvania, the same Republican Party whose legislature gave us mail-in balloting, no excuse mail-in balloting, and caused all the trouble we've had for the past several years. This same state of Republicans. There are, mind you, patriotic, dedicated servants of the people in the Republican Party who serve in the House and the Senate of Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but the parties as a whole are not doing it for the interest of Pennsylvanians. Either that or they're incredibly stupid. The mail-in balloting is the perfect example. Act 77, which undermine things in this state, needs to be addressed. So that's Kathy Barnette, as told by Doug Mastriano. Let's take a look at some of the smears that came out in the past few days against her. First off, the CNN lying that she won't meet with the media, that all her events are closed. Those are lies. I have footage. I went to the event. You can watch my video, which is posted here and on Odyssey, about her speaking at that event. You can watch it. You can see it. That's March 15th. That occurred. She was open to the public. Media were invited. There were many media outlets there, but all of them were conservative. No liberal media outlets had any interest whatsoever in covering this campaign because they didn't want to give Mastriano any traction. But on a Tuesday night in the middle of March, in a primary, in an off year, an off presidential cycle, a state senator attracted 1,000 plus people to an event. They didn't want to cover that. So now they claim that she is closed and they don't answer questions. Here are her military records. Let's talk about her military records. Specifically, her DD-214, which is a discharge paper from the Department of Defense. DD, Department of Defense, 214 is the form number. I have two of these, one from my enlisted time when I was enlisted back in the early 1980s, and then another when I just left the military in 2019. Two DD-214s. Plus, I have discharge National Guard NG Form 55, which is what she also has. That's a National Guard form for your discharge. I have been discharged from the military 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and I've only gotten out of the military once. That's right, folks. I left active duty in 1987, was discharged from active duty, and immediately I was the moment already in the National Guard. There was some confusion with my contract. They adjusted it, and about a month and a half later, I was discharged again, and so I have discharge paperwork for that month and a half. And then I was discharged a third time when I switched my status to the Simultaneous Membership Program, SMP, to be an officer cadet while serving in the Guard. And that's 3 discharges. And I came back in active duty. I got a 4th discharge from the Guard. And then I got out of the Army in 2019. I have 5 discharges. So when you look at someone's record, you need to look at the documents in totality, not the snippets and little clips that Mehmet Oz and these super PACs have put together to tarnish and destroy the reputation of Kathy Barnette. Now, we're going to say some things that don't compliment her, but stick with us, folks. Hang in there. It's coming. So let's go ahead and take a look at these things I want to point out very quickly here, okay? First off, this slide here, this These are some of the smear allegations that are being spread out there by the likes of Ric Grenell and others. Ric Grenell, who disgraces himself and shows he's just a swamp creature, the highest ever openly gay member of a U.S. government. He was the ambassador to Berlin, and then he was also the acting director of national intelligence, and he disgraces himself. These are some of the comments. These are paraphrased from what others have said in multiple places, particularly on Twitter. Refuses to state where she was stationed. However, this DD-214, which she had already made public before that false claim came out a few days ago, clearly shows in the red bubble, the left-hand top side, which unit she was assigned to in Alabama. It absolutely shows which unit this woman was assigned to. So this is pure smear nonsense. Her last duty assignment before she came was Charlie Company, 369th AG Battalion, 4th Training Brigade. That's where she's training at. She's going back to the 336th Adjutant General Detachment in Sheffield, Alabama. So that says where she was stationed. Okay, she only served a brief time. Well, that's because they look at this form right here, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to tell you about those yellow circles. They look at this form and claim that, oh, she only served a brief time. That's because this DD-214 is her only time on active duty when she served in basic training and initial entry training, and that only lasts for a few months. When you leave as a reserve component soldier, you are given a discharge paperwork because you return to the reserve component, the National Guard or the reserves. And that's why this has a brief period of time. And they fraudulently use this to claim she only served a short period of time. On the right-hand side in the yellow, two things I point out. The top yellow button says the service members group life insurance coverage of $50,000. Now, that's important because service members are offered life insurance at a reduced, very affordable rate. At the time this rate was there, it was $4 per month for every service member who opted to take it. $50,000 on your death, regardless of the circumstances. Now, that was the rate at the time. That was later increased to $200,000 later in that decade. And later, while I still served in active duty after the Iraq conflict started, that amount was raised to $400,000. Our premiums went to $16, but we went from $50,000 to $400,000 of life insurance as a service member, which helps prevent service members from having to buy life insurance while they serve in active duty. I no longer have that policy because it's only available to active service regardless of your health, your conditions, or whatever's going on. So that shows that this is a genuine document from that time frame, $50,000. Now, the next thing is she serves 3 months and 29 days. Well, that is a brief period of time. Yes, that's the second yellow button in the top right-hand side. That circle, 3 months and 29 days, because this is when she served in her initial entry training. At the bottom, it explains why she was discharged. Released from initial and active duty training. Expiration term of service. She has met her training time. That's what that document's about. They lie and say that she served a short period of time, that she doesn't tell us where she served at, that she only served, it's utter nonsense. So there's the second slide, folks. Same statements. On this one, this is the NG Form 55, National Guard Bureau 55. That's what this form is, ladies and gentlemen. So let me talk about this one here very quickly, and you'll see the same sort of things. In the upper top right-hand side, it says station or installation to which she is assigned. She's assigned there in Alabama. It says that very clearly. Then on the right-hand side is a yellow box and a red box. The yellow box shows prior active federal service, in which it states 3 months and 29 days. Now, that comports with the DD-214 I just showed you. Because this is a later document, it has to include all prior active and non-active service, inactive service. And then the other red box below it says her total amount of service, 7 years, 7 months, and 12 days, I think it is, 13 days. Then on the left-hand side, the second red bubble says the terminal date of military service and when she gets out. It says the reason she gets out at the end of her term of service. That means she completed her enlistment. At the bottom, the character of her service in the red says honorable. Now, folks, that's 2 documents. Those aren't all of them documents. She probably has another discharge, but every time you enlist in the National Guard Reserve, you are discharged before you're re-enlisted. If you're active duty, the same thing if you're enlisted. You get discharge papers, but don't issue DD-14. There's discharge orders, and then they re-enlist you. And then issue one DD-214 at the end. That's an important distinction here, which is not mentioned here by the people smearing Kathy Barnette. These are orders for Kathy Barnette for discharge from service. You get the form, plus you get the actual orders. Everything in the military must be ordered, and that's what's going on here. So what we have here is 3 important dates. July 19th, 1990, which is the date she entered active duty on that DD-214. April 24th, 1998, which was that National Guard form I just showed you, which characterizes service as over 7.5 years. And 27 June 2000. 27 June 2000 is the document on the right. The document on the left here is a discharge orders from 1997. National Guard Bureau Form 55, discharge. That goes in addition to the document I showed you a moment ago. But the most important document here is the one on the right from 27 June 2000. It says she is discharged from the reserve component. That is 10 years from the time that she enlisted. So as she claimed, she served 10 years in the military. Now, Fox News refuses to report this because they're slime balls. Sean Hannity's a scumbag, and so is Fox News. The media, the left media, refuse to report this. They refuse to call her a veteran. She's a veteran. Whether you serve in combat or not, you are a veteran if you served in uniform honorably. So there you go. So that's refuting the nonsense there, folks. That's that. Now, what I'd like to show you now is a clip from her own campaign telling her story. It's very compelling. But if you want to hear the dirt on Kathy Barnette, there is some dirt, and I'll be getting to that, so don't rush off. But stick with us as we listen to this about 3.5 minutes. And here we go, folks. This is Kathy Barnette. This is a campaign ad, but it tells her story. It's about 3.5 minutes. We can get started here in just a second. Okay. It Wasn't a Choice is the name of this video. So stick with me, folks. And this is Kathy Barnette. And this is about a little bit about her. And this is why she surged in the polls. When the Roe versus Wade leak, the criminal leak occurred, it's not Roe versus Wade, it's just that it's going to overturn that case. When that criminal leak occurred, abortion moved to the top of the political discussion in many places, particularly in places where the majority of people in this state are conservative and many are Christians, but not just Christians who believe in the sanctity of life. Also, Jews and Muslims believe in it as well, but they never get any attention by the mainstream media. They only go after Christians. So this is her ad.
I grew up in southern Alabama, very rural, one-stop sign town called Nichburg. Getting ready to go to college, I decided to go into the Army Reserves. But I had to go get my birth certificate, mainly because the name was different. The name I had always grown up with was Nelson, but then come to find out there was something completely different on my birth certificate. Clearly, I could have done the math and realized just how young my mother was when she gave birth to me, but it was never something that truly resonated with me until I looked at my birth certificate for the very first time and just kind of studied it. Her gender, they called her a Negro girl, and that was the first thing I saw, and it just kind of grabbed my heart. But then I saw her age, and she was 12. And that just really struck a chord in me because I realized just how young my mother was when something so horrible had visited upon her. Even to this day, it's a very hard word to say, but my mother was raped, given her young age at 11 years old, and my father being 21.
They was hurt. We was all devastated. But my mother said, you know, you're pregnant, so we're going to get through this. And she helped me get through it. I don't want to use the word choice. She was going to be born. I didn't have a choice to say, you're going to live, or I'm going to abort you. That wasn't a choice for me. And I thank God it wasn't a choice for me.
As a child, I knew no difference. I was loved, and I felt loved. It gave me a greater appreciation for my mother. It helped me to forgive a lot of the mistakes someone at that age, having gone through such trauma, would have made in their own parenting. But it definitely made me become very adamant about the sanctity of life, of all life, regardless of their conception, regardless of how they arrived, that I am valuable, I'm worthy, and my life has purpose. Before the foundation of the world, God saw me and he decided that I would be. And he said in his word that not only did I see you, but I called you, I predestined you. And so as a Christian, I believe in the value of life, that when I was in my mother's womb, he was knitting me together. Even among Christians, even among staunch conservatives, an exception to the rule of being pro-life for many is in the case of rape. And yet my life has value. From me has come two very beautiful and charming and smart kids, married to a wonderful husband. We've made a life for ourselves, and none of this would have happened if the exception to the rule had applied.
Regardless of how old you are and how the child was conceived, that child deserves a chance. And if I had made that choice, where would I be at right now without my daughter?
The hardest struggle for my mother, the hardest thing for her to overcome, I think, is just the effects of the trauma itself. And that is why I think it's so important to help people understand that the trauma has already been inflicted. The child should not be inflicted with the consequences that squarely belongs on the one who inflicted the trauma. You have to be able to see the difference. Aborting me would not have eased the trauma that my mother suffered. Aborting me would not have allowed me to be in a place today where I can now take care of my mother.
It's just amazing to see them grow up. Regardless of how my life started out, I'm blessed.
I'm not left with bitterness. I'm left with overwhelming sense of gratitude. That not only did God see value in my life, but that my family saw value in my life. I'm very grateful for that. I'm eternally grateful that they chose to allow me to be born.
Kathy Barnette, folks, in her own words. Very touching, very moving. Yeah, there you have it. Yeah, so sorry about that. It's a bit emotional to listen to. Yes, Ken, I think the mom is a hero. 12 years old, giving birth after having been raped. That's your entry into life, living in a desperately poor area. In a time when things are just beginning to change in the South and around the country. Kathy born 1970s, so in the 1880s, things had already changed, but there were still legacies of the miseries and the misfortunes and unreasonable things that happened in our past. They were still there. So, yeah, okay, now, sorry for the emotion, folks, but there's a lot more to unpack here. So first off, this is why suddenly she is of attention and why the attacks have come in the smears. She's suddenly in second place in basically a statistical tie in the Republican primary. With Mehmet Oz, a Turkish national, a foreign national, not even an American citizen. Yes, I know he's a naturalized citizen, but you can't owe fealty to two countries. And Dave McCormick's successful businessman. The others are just afterthoughts. That 15% undecided has risen to 20% undecided. So there you go. 20% of the Republican voter base who answer the poll are undecided, folks. So who is Kathy Barnette? Who is she? And what's going on here? Why in the world are we talking about Kathy Barnette? Well, we're talking about Kathy Barnette because the media have gone after her. They have gone after her, but it isn't the media that instigated this, to be honest. The media was asleep at the wheel, not asking questions about who Kathy Barnette was for the 13 months that she's been running for office. 13 months this woman's been running for the Senate office that's being vacated by the disappointing Pat Toomey, a Republican senator. And the state of Pennsylvania is now paying attention because of Roe versus Wade and because of her personal story, a very compelling story. So they come after her with lies. They claim that she never served the military. She's hiding. She's not answering questions. Those are lies. I'm a journalist. I went to her event. She answered my questions without reservation. She spoke. It was an open event. The fact that there are private fundraising activities late in the campaign does not mean what the fake stream media claims. They lie about her. Even conservative media are coming out and lying against her. We see Sean Hannity attack her, saying she's unvetted. Well, that's because, Sean Hannity, you've been sitting on your ample lard ass in your privileged little elite tower studio, not asking questions about Kathy Barnette, ignoring this race because you are a bought and paid for shill, Sean Hannity. That's what you are, a bought and paid for shill. You've been bought and paid for since at least 2016 and not a legitimate commentator. You're welcome to your opinions, and those who subject themselves to Sean Hannity's drivel every night at 9 o'clock, enjoy it. His shtick gets old pretty quickly. He lost his appeal after Hannity and Combs stopped being a program. But who is Kathy Barnette? Well, that's the question everybody's asking. The Philadelphia Inquirer is suddenly on the case. And unlike many of their articles, it's not behind a paywall. Isn't that fascinating? Who is Kathy Barnette, folks? Well, let's talk about who Kathy Barnette is from the Philadelphia Inquirer and other news stories. And then I'm going to talk to you about some things that are less than appealing about Kathy Barnette. We need to be honest here. So, who is Kathy Barnette? And can Pennsylvania figure it out before she wins the GOP nod? Well, what do you mean, can they figure it out? What's that? Sounds like you are against her. like Rich Strike in the Kentucky Derby, unknown PA GOP Senate longshot Kathy Barnette sprints for the lead. But who is she really? For an hour Wednesday night, the crunchy green artificial turf and the big indoor practice field at Newton Athletic Club in Bucks County offered a kind of safe space for Kathy Barnette to reveal in her new status as a sudden shock co-frontrunner Pennsylvania's GOP Senate primary in that election that could tip the balance in Washington, D.C. Barnette, that kind of vague B-list Fox News pundit who's never held elected office, basked in the loud whoops of about 400 Republican faithful when she was introduced to a panel of 6 contenders that also included her top rival, TV celebrity Mehmet Oz. The candidate format allowed her to mostly avoid the main issues to pitch her slight but compellingly crafted narrative. Okay, now that is not objective. All right, let me go back and see. Yes, it is listed as opinion. I'll give the Philadelphia Inquirer credit. It is listed as opinion. None of that. That's all just really. Here's sudden shock frontrunner. Okay, that's fine. But a kind of vague B list. Wow. Kind of like the author, Will Bunch, kind of a vague B list columnist that nobody's ever heard of. Wow. Introduced a panel, gave her the chance to avoid the questions and her slight but compelling narrative. Wow. I am you, the 50-year-old Barnette said, voicing her campaign slogan, "I come from humble beginnings." Indeed, she did, as did I. Anyway, said that she has done. He said he was able to meet Barnette away from the stage for a brief interview. The fiery right-winger who took buses to January 6th rally became an insurrection. No, it wasn't an insurrection. So you've already undermined your narrative here, Will Bunch. That's not objective. That's just bullshit opinion. There was no insurrection. The insurrection was Chaz, the Capital Autonomous Zone out in Seattle in the summer of 2020, which was not prosecuted. Yeah, people declared their own country inside the United States, folks. Yeah, that's called an insurrection. Not 250,000 people protesting peacefully in front of the building, and then an intentional security absence allows people into the building, and then you make a false claim of an insurrection in which no building was torched, no statues were toppled, no paintings were torn down or defaced, and no one fired artillery or bullets. The only people who fired bullets were law enforcement. And they covered it up because the assailant was black and the victim was white. Yep. So he says that she's been branded as an ultra mega candidate for the Donald Trump interlude, and this progressive interlude, the Donald Trump interlude. So that's us also just stripping with venom and hatred there. And this progressive minded newspaper columnist agreed about one thing. At least he's honest. He's progressive minded. Now you're in the tank, progressive. The media should have been paying a lot more attention to who she is and what she stands for. It's your job to vet, and I've always been open to that, Barnette said when asked the sudden seemingly coordinated knives out attack. And I'll give Bunch credit. That's an honest statement. He says, it's your job to vet, and I've always been open to that. That's what Barnette said. A sudden, seemingly coordinated knives out attack from conservative media now that she's in a virtual dead heat with Oz and hedge fund CEO David McCormick. I've been doing it for 13 months, trying to get people to talk to me, talk about my story. That's true. She has. Neither Barnette nor I knew that in less than 30 minutes, conservative TV icon Sean Hannity would not only host Oz to reiterate his support for Trump, but also raise sharp questions about Barnett's more outlandish social media post, including one from January of 2016 called Barack Obama a Muslim. Fox News host declared that with 6 days left in this campaign, there are serious, real open questions about Barnette. Only because you're a lazy shit, Sean Hannity. Former ambassador to Germany, Ric Grenell, promoting a YouTube video titled The Real Kathy Barnette, which spotlighted past comments about white racism and systemic racism, especially in police officers, words that would trigger the GOP base. And this is where Will Bunch fails. If Will Bunch actually did the research and looked, he would find that those were quotes. She was commenting on what Black Lives Matter people said, and she elaborated on that. But no, they pull that, and Ric Grenell is a disgusting slimeball as well, pulling this stuff out and falsely making claims. What appears that she supports Black Lives Matter, that she says there's systemic racism. No, she is telling people what those idiots said, and then they took her voice and pieced it together in little sound bites. And that bullshit is not going to fool real voters, real cogent voters. But that's what's going on. That's a smear from Ric Grenell. And that tells us all we need to know about Ric Grenell. He's either a lazy shit, and if he's that stupid and lazy as the former director of national intelligence, no wonder our national intelligence is so dicked up. If that's who's leading national intelligence. So I guess what we're left with Ric Grenell is two things. He's the first and most openly gay, most senior member of administration. Whoop the frickin' do. We supported you because we thought you were conservative, not because you were gay. So that's all you have left in your resume. You're gay. And you're a slimeball who hasn't had the common sense to put two sticks together and friggin' start a fire properly. Piecing together bullshit and lying about Kathy Barnette. Now, her comments, which others have revealed, do reveal things that are questionable about Kathy Barnette, but not piecing together things she said to distort and lie. That's disgraceful. That's absolutely disgraceful. It's not just conservatives, though, who suddenly have a lot of questions about who she is. I pressed her about her Twitter history by Inside Elections reporter Jacob Rubashkin of posts promoting Islam as a theocracy should be banned in the USA and that pedophilia is a cornerstone of Islam from April 2015. She says, I don't recall what you're talking about, and I doubt seriously I would have said anything like that, even though Rushkin has posted screenshots of the tweet. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have a card? Okay, so he ambushed her on the campaign trail in which she just had a debate about a social media post from 7 years ago. And he portrays it as she's skirting the question. Well, what you need to do now is she asked for your card, reach out to her campaign, and try to get an interview about it. That's what you do. You don't ambush somebody like that. That's not journalism. That's bullshit. That's sensationalism. That is the National Enquirer. That is CNN. Sensationalism. You know how credible CNN is. I'm standing here in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in front of a mostly peaceful Black Lives Matter protest. Gunshots, car dealership on fire, flames leaping up 30 feet in the air, a mostly peaceful protest. Frauds, frauds, frauds. This gentleman, Will Bunch, perhaps you try to engage the candidate and not trying to ambush her and ask for an interview. And why didn't you ask for an interview sooner, Mr. Progressive-minded Will Bunch? You should have asked for an interview sooner. I did. I paid attention. Yeah. So, anyway. He says, and this is the snide little attack. Apparently, there are limits to how much Barnette wants to talk to media about her story. Bullshit. This is not journalism. I know it's an opinion piece, but it's not even a valid opinion piece. Did you request an interview? No. Like a shithead, you showed up at a rally and you blindsided her. Intentionally. That's not journalism. That's sensationalism. So that's the Philadelphia Inquirer. The Washington Compost. The MAGA establishment looks to crush an unwelcome outsider. By Philip Bump. Sean Hannity's Fox News show on Thursday had a theme. Kathy Barnette has not gone through any kind of rigorous vetting. That is now proving a massive problem in this race. Well, where were you, Sean Hannity? You have a show 5 nights a week, 52 weeks a year, you little turd ball. Sean Hannity, yeah, I was young. I value working. I used to work as a roofer. Yeah, I was there when Richard Jewell was attacked. And I've been licking Donald Trump's boots since the very beginning. Yeah, shut up, Sean Hannity. You've had 13 months to vet this candidate. You didn't give a shit because you're part of the fraudulent media establishment. When Roger Ailes fell down the stairs or he was pushed, whatever the hell happened to Roger Ailes, Fox News went in the crapper. Fair and balanced, bullshit and distorted. That's what Fox News is. Total scumbag network. Called the Arizona race 3 hours before the polls even closed. And the margin of victory is less than 10,000 votes. If that is an election fraud, I don't know what is. That's a facetious comment for the artificial intelligence for YouTube. Pay attention. It's called sarcasm, YouTube. Sarcasm. Not a claim. He has at least honest in representing his position, and this is what Hannity said. The candidate I endorsed and President Trump endorsed, Dr. Mehmet Oz, is holding on to the number one spot. Yeah, well, we don't care who you endorse, Sean Hannity. And for all the leftists who constantly lie about Donald, these MAGA supporters, all they do is what Trump told them to do. They're just like automatons. No. We don't want Donald Trump's assessment of the Pennsylvania Senate race. We don't want Donald Trump's opinion of who can win and who can't win. Speaking of Donald Trump's opinion, here it is for all it's worth. Nothing. Liz Harrington, could not race to say President Donald Trump, Dr. Oz is the only one who will be able to easily defeat the crazed lunatic Democrat in Pennsylvania. Vote for anyone else in the primaries to vote against victory in the fall. Yeah, okay. She has many things to pass which have not been properly explained or vetted, but she's able to do so. She would have a wonderful future in the Republican Party. I'd be behind her all the way. Dr. Oz is the only one who's able to easily defeat the crazed lunatic and Democrat. Well, there are a lot of things in Donald Trump's past which were never properly explained and never properly vetted. And we still voted for you for president. So shut up. Go back to your corner. We don't want to hear what you have to say, Donald Trump. Piss off, Footsec. Did you get it? Did you get it? Did you hear that, leftist hate wankers? Self-pleasuring, lying, scumbag political elites in the Washington Compost, Jeff Bezos' personal propaganda machine, the New York Slimes, the Gray Lady of Distortion, the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Constitution Journal, all these fraudulent media outlets. Did you hear what I said? Conservative Americans don't give a shit about Donald Trump's opinion on who the candidate is in this race. So piss off. Piss off. That ought to break your false narrative about automatons doing whatever Trump wants them to do. Grow up. Stop with your coffee table analysis from your weak-ass Ivy League privileged elite little shithead lives. Now, CNN, interestingly, does a fact check. And they dispose all of the nonsense. And I will give you the link to this fact check on Kathy Barnette. It's brilliant. Actually, some real journalism from CNN. But why? Because it suits their narrative. That's why. It fits in their effort to undermine things. That's why CNN has it. It's not because they give a crap. It's not because it matters to them. It's because it suits their narrative. So for once, they actually do the truth here. Here you go, folks. This is a story from CNN that actually gets it right. It tells the lies, and that's because they want to paint her as somebody that doesn't like Black Lives Matter, which is what she is. She calls them out for the frauds that they are. And CNN willingly admits that in the primary, which they'll use to come back and attack her in the fall if she wins. Deceptive attack ad from Oz allies falsely depicts Barnett's positions, Black Lives Matter, race, and policing. This from Daniel Dale and Andrew Kaczynski. Is that Ted Kaczynski's cousin? Anyway, a super PAC supporting Mehmet Oz, the celebrity surgeon, prominent candidate in Pennsylvania's race, has released an attack ad that wildly distorts the past remarks and positions of Kathy Barnette, a party rival who is surging in late campaign polls. The super PAC, American Leadership Action, tries to depict right-wing Barnette, who ran unsuccessfully in the House of Representatives in 2020, as a crazy advocate of liberal positions. To do so, though, the super PAC misleadingly truncated her past comments about race and policing and added inaccurate introductions to these shortened clips. There you go. The ad's narrator suggests that viewers are about to hear Barnette speak on the subject of violence, and the ad then shows a clip of Barnette, who is black, saying Black Americans feel disenfranchised. After a quick cut, the ad shows her saying systemic racism, specifically among police officers. But the reality is, this is a May 2020 YouTube commentary, and they selectively pulled the comments out. Now, CNN does a great job talking about it. The New York Post, a conservative publication, comes out and says, don't vote for Kathy Barnette. More elites in the conservative side telling you who to vote for. Pennsylvania's GOP voters should kick Kathy Barnette to the curb, says the New York Post in an op-ed 2 days ago. They said she can't win. She can't win. But this foreign Turkish national will win. No. Screw you. And the same publication, CNN, then does a story in which they attack her. So they report the truth, and then they attack her. It's comical to see CNN at work here. So surging GOP candidate Kathy Barnette has a long history of bigoted statements against gays and Muslims. Now, they give screen captures, and they talk about things that she said in 2015, 2014. 2015, December 2015, 2015, January 2016. That is not a long history. Everybody makes mistakes, does stupid things, has dumb decisions in their life, particularly if they're the age of 18. So selectively finding something from 7 years ago and 6 years ago is not a long history. Now, if you could show a train from 2015 to 2022 and incessantly her doing this sort of thing, that's a long history. So that's a lie from CNN. Now, what they say is true about her. She did say these things. And the Business Insider comes with another smear piece. Pennsylvania GOP Senate candidate Kathy Barnette has called for banning Islam in America and said LGBTQ people lead with their sexual preference. Well, actually, that's sort of true. A lot of them do. They do. So, yep. Anyway, so because she's surging, they've gone after her. So, yep. Now, here's some of her tweets. They're legit. She actually put them out there. Okay. 2015, 2013. Oh, there's one more 2013. So they did a little more research. Okay. Right. So there you go. That's a little bit about her. So this is also from CNN Politics. So they had on CNN Fact Checking, CNN Opinion Piece, and CNN Politics page. Yep. Barnette slams GOP rivals at closed event in a spotlight on late surging Pennsylvania Senate hopeful intensifies. This one from Dan Mercia. All these weird surnames these people have. In her speech Saturday, Barnette cast her two top opponents, Mehmet Oz and Dave McCormick, as fake conservatives. And they are fake conservatives. You have Mehmet Oz, who never used his public platform to push for any of our America First agenda. He never has. And now we're being told he's a MAGA conservative, which is a lie. Never, she said, before attacking McCormick with the ties to a hedge fund he previously led to China. You cannot be in bed with China financially if you're not also in bed with China ideologically. And yet they're telling us they're conservative. Pay attention. Yep. She said McCormick is negotiating against the country, adding that no one has the credentials and toughness to go toe-to-toe with China like I do. Anyway, so yeah. So, yeah, there you go. So that's what's going on. But, okay, let's now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a couple things that are less than complimentary about her because in the interest of full disclosure, she did say these things. So now you take this for however you want. This is one in which she talks about discrimination. So let me get this one up real quick.
This one's
about a minute long. She talks about discrimination. So let me just get that one up very quickly. So, interest of full disclosure, she had said some things that are questionable, and they merit attention. But at the 11th hour, to try to submarine her campaign because she's surging, this is despicable. Here we go.
Well, let me free you up from that chain of bondage. You are not a racist if you reject Islam or if you reject Muslims, because they are not a race of people. They are a particular view. There are people that have a particular view of the world, and we have a right to discriminate against worldviews. We discriminated against Hitler's Nazi Germany view of the world, right? That was a world view. That's how he saw the world around him, and we discriminated against it. We rejected it. We rejected Stalin's view, communist view of the world, right? Because that's a particular view of the world that we don't agree with. So we have the right to discriminate against worldviews because all views are not morally equal. All views are not equal. So we have the right to reject it. And let me just...
Yeah, so that's her view. If you take issue with that, you're welcome to take issue with that. It's not, she also made comments that that gay marriage was a slippery slope to pedophilia. Now, that tie can't be proven, but we certainly, society-wise, have taken a slip there. We have people defending pedophiles, saying that calling them pedophiles is damaging to their psyche. Who gives a shit? They're a child rapist. They should be exposed and demonized. Yeah, no, but there are people, people are trying to mainstream pedophilia now. Some have been doing for decades. So she's right in that standpoint. But that's her. Now, this one here will get a lot of attention. Because this one here is going to get a lot of people's attention, and let's hear it. Let's hear what she's got to say.
Those are two most powerful weapons. And there are a lot of truisms I can talk about in regards to Islam. I spent a number of years studying it and reading the Quran, talking to Muslims, just to get an understanding. Because the mindset of a Muslim is very different from the mindset of Americans. And that's the reason why we cannot fully understand the level, the depth of the depravity, the depth of the evil, because it's just not a part of the American fabric for the most part. But let me just...
Now, the problem with that, and I'll be very clear about it, and that does raise questions for me, but that doesn't change my view on Kathy Barnette, is it's not a part of the American fabric. The problem, okay, first off, there's no such thing as being an American based on ethnicity or race. There's no such thing as being an American based on religion or faith. No. America has had Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Christians throughout its history. And those people are all part of the fabric of America. Being an American is an idea. Most of us get our Americanness and citizenship based on the accident of birth. And few people actually earn their place as an American as they wade through life. Some of us do, through public service and creating jobs and taking care of our communities. Some of us do, but many do not. So being an American is an idea. It's about, this passport is identification I'm an American citizen, and it means something. American exceptionalism is real. So her comments there are out of bounds. They're off the mark. They're disrespectful. And I don't know if they come from ignorance or a misstatement at the time or intentional bigotry. I don't know. I would ask her that question another time. But Muslims are part of America. Jews are part of America. Buddhists are part of America. Hindus, Wiccans are part of America. Even Satanists are part of America. And that doesn't make them any less American. So, but there is truth to the statement that you need to understand the Quran and Islam in order to understand what's going on in the world. That's a true statement. And it is true that Muhammad married a little girl and had children with a little girl. So that is very deeply, steeped in the faith of Islam. It's in the Quran. And if you don't doubt it, then you need to read the Quran and learn about Islam. That doesn't make her a bigot or a racist, but it does raise questions. Now, her comment that it's not part of American fabric, that does raise legitimate questions, and it's worth bearing. But hearing CNN and other media outlets claim that she is not answering questions, she's avoiding questions, that is highly selective. They go to an event, they ambush her after the event when she's off to another location because she's campaigning, and she doesn't recall it from 7 years ago. Give the woman the benefit of the doubt. She doesn't recall it. Offer her a chance to have an interview. If she refuses the interview, then you can make the claim she refused an interview and refused to answer your question on this or submit questions to her. But to simply ambush somebody at an event and then make such a claim is just bullshit. It's all bullshit. And that's what's going on here, folks. That's what's going on here. This is an American who has her warts and her shortcomings, but she's a wonderful person, and she should be recognized for such. And her story is very compelling. What an amazing experience for her mother to have been raped at 11, bear this child at 12. The child managed to be raised, and they have a loving relationship to this day. Those are her grandkids that would never have existed. This man would never have found this partner. And what a loss it would have been for all of us had she been aborted when her mother was 11 years old. What a tragedy that would have been. Well, folks, this has been a impromptu special broadcast about the smears against Kathy Barnette. There are legitimate questions about her campaign, but the lies from the mainstream media, including CNN, the Philadelphia Inquirer, about her not answering questions, not available, that's because they're lazy. They're not legitimate journalists. They didn't go and do the research. They didn't get off their ass and drive to events, although the Philadelphia Inquirer guy did. But where was he in March? He wasn't there in March. 1,000 people show up at a off-cycle rally for a state senator running for governor in Pennsylvania, and the media doesn't show up. That's your shortcoming. That's your fault. If you think these questions are unanswered, then you need to do research, and not the slimy research that Ric Grenell and Mehmet Oz have done, which is not research. It's simply a character assassination. That's what it is. I've shown you the documents. She is a military veteran. She served for 10 years in the reserve component. Case closed. She disclosed it. Case closed. She answered where she was stationed. Case closed. She answered all the questions, but they lie about it. She never expressed support for Black Lives Matter. She never talked about systemic racism. She denied all that stuff and said this is the greatest country in the world, and I have the video evidence of it. They have selectively edited these things because they're scumbag, slimy swamp creatures. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Program announcement in 4 minutes. It'll be the Weather Hooligan. I'll catch you right back here on Chris White Africa. Take care of yourself. Chris White Reports. Lovely day, folks. Appreciate your support for the channel. God bless, and we'll see you here in just a couple of minutes. And good luck to Kathy Barnette in the election and to all her opponents for that matter. But hopefully people who've been misbehaving will clean up their act and stop doing it. Anyway, folks, cheers. See you shortly. Dr. Oz is a carpetbagger. I've been very clear about him. And someone said, Renee said he was born in Cleveland. So what? So why is he a Turkish national? Why does Mehmet Oz hold Turkish citizenship? And why will he only relinquish it if we elect him? Fraud. You can't owe fealty to another. If you're born in America and you become a national in another country, then you're not an American. Case over.